So I would like to welcome our first candidate of the evening. Will be Chelsea Lepley. Chelsea is from Des Moines. She's running for City Council Ward 2, which is the northeast sector of Des Moines. Chelsea is a prominent neighborhood leader here in Des Moines for years, and she's been involved with several campaigns in the past, both locally and statewide. So with that, I will start taking her time. Chelsea will get 5 minutes to talk about herself and her campaign. Then Chelsea Patrick, who's online right now, our chair of our election endorsement committee, will ask you 2 or 3 questions, whatever time permits. But we will finish this up within 15 minutes flat. So by 6:15, we will be done. So with that, Chelsea, you have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks everybody for making time. So I appreciate being included in this. I've known several of the folks involved in the Unity Coalition for quite some time, and I'm always happy to see when folks are working together to get stuff done rather than recreating the wheel over and over. If you were at my kickoff event, you might have heard me say that when I'm interviewing someone for a candidate or for either a job or for elected office, I like to ask them like what they think the position is capable of, like what could someone accomplish with this job. And I think there's a lot more that a ward city council person could be accomplishing. I think one of the first orders of business is going to be to improve relationships and communication between residents and City Hall. I've talked to a lot of folks who feel like they have been excluded or disrespected by the current, by the incumbent, and I want to make sure that we can take a more inclusive, respectful approach with that. One of the things that's really important to me is also improving the transparency and access. It shouldn't be so hard to figure out what the city's doing before all the decisions are made. And it's a lot of little things like the agenda, and it's some bigger things like instead of relying on people to read our newsletter, we can seek out community and multilingual media to reach people where they're at. One of the big things that you might hear me talk about is sort of redefining public safety to include stuff that isn't just law enforcement, right? Safety is where we live and work. It means people have a safe, stable home. It means they feel safe walking, biking, driving, taking the bus. It means that kids are getting to school safely and that, like our sidewalks and other infrastructure are accessible. So I think thinking about safety in a broader way will make the conversation about like decenter law enforcement in the conversation about safety. So that's been a really big thing for me. For folks who don't know, I started running for this because I kept waiting for a really cool progressive candidate to announce so I could manage their campaign. Because I've been doing neighborhood organizing for 20 years, and that's my comfort zone, is sort of doing the behind the scenes hard work of coalition building to help advance good elected officials and stuff like that. But I kept waiting and I kept waiting. And finally, I figured out that we are the leaders that we've been waiting for, as the quote says. So I announced late spring, early summer, and I've been really pleasantly surprised by the enthusiasm from all kinds of communities. And I think one of the main things I guess I would want to point out as I sort of wrap up my time is that it's a totally doable election. I know it's important to, like you want to make good endorsements when you do that. And people have been really eager to tell me that I'm up against a lot of money, which I am. But we
Chelsea,
need.
You have 30 seconds for your opening statement.
Yep. So we don't need the $150,000 that the incumbent will have. we need 2,300 votes more or less. And I think when you think about, you're counting votes on election day, not dollars, right? And so when you think about the fact that it takes less than 2,500 votes to win a ward seat like this, it seems really doable. And I'd be delighted to have the support of the Unity Coalition to go along with the other endorsements that we've started to see come in. Happy to take questions, which I know there are some. Any follow-ups as well?
Thank you very much, Chelsea. Well, we're going to give the floor to Patrick now. He'll ask you 2 or 3 questions, whatever time permits. And with that, Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mitch. And hi, Chelsea. Thank you for joining us today.
Glad to.
So we sent you the questionnaire. Thank you for responding to them. So question number 6 asked you what new gun safety measures you would support to protect our community. You indicated that efforts by municipal government to reduce firearm deaths should focus on suicide prevention, domestic abuse interventions, mental health services, expanding the crisis response options, so forth. Does this mean that, in your view, the major cause of firearm deaths in the U.S. is due to poor mental health, or are there other more causal factors, in your opinion?
Well, I guess I haven't looked at the stats just here lately, but last time that I checked, most gun deaths were not mass shootings, right? They're mostly suicides and intimate partner violence. And so I guess I would be reluctant to chalk it up to any particular diagnosis or anything like that. I want to be really careful about stigmatizing mental health and taking care of that. But yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of causes that we can address before we get to the point of the gun violence, right? We can make it easier to get care. We can make it easier to do, you probably also saw I mentioned there's some other municipal programs that do stuff like give out trigger locks and gun safes. Like, the city government has been thwarted at every turn by the state legislature, but there are still some things that we can do. And so I've been looking at what other cities are doing to help prevent gun deaths, which I think is a little different than gun control, right? But I think the reason people support gun control is to prevent unnecessary deaths. And so I think that there's a few angles we can approach that from. I don't know if that answers exactly what you're hoping for. I'm happy to clarify if there's something else I should elaborate on.
Sure. Yeah, I guess sort of what the crux of the question as we were discussing it in the committee was, other countries that don't have the access of with guns that we do in this country, they don't have as high a
Oh,
rate.
yeah.
So we're wondering, is it access versus that whole access versus
Sure.
mental health?
Oh yeah, I fully support increased state and federal regulation, especially on some of the higher capacity magazines, some of the things we call assault rifles, things like that. Definitely support state and federal regulations on that. And I would want to use a platform that I have to advance those. I just know it is unlikely to be a topic that does come before city council.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on. So question number 8 asked what local governments can do to encourage diverse communities to participate in the voting process. Some of the measures you mentioned were making materials available in more languages, making sure polling places are equitable and accessible, and requesting satellite voting locations. So given the new limitations on satellite voting, what other measures like this would you support?
This might be another good example of one of the places where, I've spent the last several years telling city council candidates to focus on city level issues. You don't need to talk about state level laws when you're running for city council, but I don't feel like that's true anymore right now that there's been so much that's happened at the state level. It's really important for cities to sort of be proactively defensive, I think, for protecting our residents' rights. I guess I don't have a really quick answer to that question, right? I want to find out what other cities are doing, and I want to find out what we, I don't want to say can get away with, but what will pass muster for us to be able to make voting more accessible for folks. I think DART already does free rides on election day. That's one example, but maybe we can look at increasing the frequency of routes. I already mentioned the languages. I know this is a time for you to interview me, but are there other specific measures that the Unity Coalition supports that you're hoping to find an answer for?
No, we just wanted to get your sense on that.
Great.
So now I'd like to ask you a little bit about your campaign. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing to try and win this election.
We are knocking on a lot of doors. So my background in campaigns is in field. And so there was always, it was kind of reminded me of in a restaurant, the front of house, back of house rivalry. It's the field and the finance. And I think it's really important to have enough money to do the mail and reach the voters. But like I said, on election day, we're counting votes. And so going out and talking to folks, I've canvassed 25 to 30,000 doors in my life. And I can guarantee you my opponent has not done the same. I think that just reaching people where they're at and talking to them about what's important to them, is valuable for the information that I get about voters and their priorities, but it also is still, I think, the best way to actually mobilize people.
Okay, great. So it looks like we might have about maybe 2 minutes left.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind taking the last couple minutes or so to tell us why we should endorse you.
I think it's probably because we are aligned on all of the principles that we've sort of codified and published. I don't ask for people to support me personally. I ask for people to make investments of time or money in the issues that we all care about, the things that we have in common, right? So the reason you should endorse my campaign is that when I'm elected, I'll help advance the same principles and values that the Unity Coalition has been working towards. I have been a progressive organizer in Iowa and a handful of other states, basically since I could. You might remember if you were at the meeting where I spoke, my first petition was when I was 11 to try to stop the death penalty from coming back under Terry Branstad. So it is in my blood somehow to continue to work toward improving equity and people's quality of life. I know that's important to the other members of the coalition as well.
Well, we still have you still have about 45 seconds left if you have anything else you would like to share.
Mitch, I don't like to talk just to talk.
Wow.
I'm happy to answer any quick questions, or I can just let you take a breather and a drink of water before your next call. I do appreciate the time.
Well, let me let you know that we will have our membership meeting next week on Tuesday evening. Our members will start voting that evening, starting at 7 o'clock, and we'll vote to the next evening until 7 o'clock. So for a 24-hour period. So we will let you know on Thursday morning if you have our endorsement or not. Then we'll put out a press release within a few days after that. Of course, we'll put it on our Facebook page, on our website. And of course, the most important thing is you get a check the following week from us, approximately a week after the endorsement. And I would like to thank you for your time. Chelsea, you did an excellent job, and thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And as a member, I'm looking forward to voting for myself.
Which you should, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we also encourage you to encourage other people to become members so they can vote too.
Perfect.
Thank you
very much. Have a great night.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.